In yet another side effect of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the air forces of the four Nordic countries took the unprecedented decision to unify their fleets, planning, operations, and patrols. Together, Sweden, Finland, Norway, and Denmark have 247 fighter jets, a combined power equivalent to the individual power of the main European members of NATO, military alliance led by the United States, such as France and Turkey. On Friday, 24th, the commanders of the four air forces announced the agreement, which on paper does not mention the word Russia, but which they themselves admit exists only for fear of future aggression from Moscow. The arrangement itself had been signed a week earlier during a meeting at the main American base in Europe, in Ramstein, Germany, which indicates U.S. sponsorship. Norway and Denmark are members of NATO, while Finland and Sweden applied to join the club after the outbreak of war, a process that is still ongoing. The aim is to operate as a single force, developing a Nordic concept for joint action based on the well-known NATO methodology, the statement said. No details or deadlines were given for implementing the plan, which ranges from strategic planning to sharing bases and planes. There are complementary aspects here. Sweden has a more diverse fleet, but lacks the best maritime patrol resources of Norway, for example. Historically, when they were not at war with each other, the countries in the region have always had friction with the Great Empire to the east due to geographical proximity, with repercussions on the local military situation. In the Cold War, Stockholm developed at home the third most powerful air force in the world, as it was a Western ally but not part of NATO. A side effect of this is that it uses its fighters, the Gripen that was also adopted by Brazil, while the neighbors will all soon have only the American F-35. The Nordic measure continues the metamorphosis of the European security landscape since Vladimir Putin became estranged from the West, still in his first term as president, 2000 to 2004, and exploded with the war last year, which generated a wave of rearmament. In 2004, NATO began jointly operating fighter jets over the Baltic states, three former Soviet republics that feel particularly vulnerable to possible Russian ambitions. They had joined NATO in 1999, which Putin sees as a betrayal of the West's promise not to expand military borders eastward after winning the Cold War, with the demise of the Soviet Union in 1991. Weak from a military point of view, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania do not even have their own air force. NATO members with fighter jets send planes to patrol the region, this year Dutch F-35s, British Eurofighters, Portuguese and Romanian F-16s have already flown there. Putin's annexation of Crimea in 2014 reinforced the scheme even further, and another initiative emerged, sharing tanker and transport fleets, an asset that is also expensive and difficult to maintain for smaller governments. Even the joint development of an Italian-British-Japanese fighter is on the table. The Baltic arrangement could be used to compensate for the Soviet MiG-29 fighters that Poland and Slovakia have started sending to cover Kiev's losses of the model. The Ukrainian government, however, asks for more. It wants Western planes like the F-16, something that is still seen as taboo in NATO. If the air is the most evident point of cooperation, it is also taking shape on land. The European Union agreed this month to deliver €1 billion of 155mm ammunition from its stockpiles and the equivalent amount in new howitzers to Kiev. Few believe the numbers will be met in full, but the initiative is unheard of on the continent since the US and Soviet Union armed their allies across the Iron Curtain after World War II. In the recent past, the political and economic integration of Europe, symbolized by the EU and the Euro, inspired military projects outside NATO, a way of trying to regain some independence from Washington, illusory as it was. Now, as the headquarters of the Nordic agreement shows, the cards are combined with the Americans. The U.S. is responsible for 75% of the $115 billion Kyiv received in military aid from the start of the war through January, and it wants to see Europeans pay more of the bills. The main target is Germany, owner of the largest economy on the continent. So far, some obstacles have been overcome. On Monday, 26, 18 units from the German armed forces arrived in the invaded country, as well as an undisclosed number of British Challenger 2 models. In the larger context of Cold War 2.0, the U.S. work in Europe is not much different from militarizing Australia and Japan under White House blessings to take on Russia's main ally, China, in its own backyard.